Subscribe to the Evo India channel and click on the bell icon for your dose of the thrill of driving.
These are two very similar looking SUVs, but if you look closely, they aren't the same. That one, it's bouncing. Welcome to the Evo India review of the Mercedes-Benz GLE 300d and the GLE 400d Hip Hop Edition. Let's dive right in. So let's talk about the exteriors first. The new generation GLE, it has grown in size compared to the older one. It's 105 mm longer, but a lot of that has actually grown between the wheels because the wheelbase is 80 mm longer. Coming to the way it looks, it's actually got a fresh face. So the grille, obviously it's new. There's that massive Mercedes-Benz logo in the center. And if you look closely, you'll see these cool looking headlamps. These are actually multi-beam LEDs, which means they can switch off individual LEDs in the cluster to not dazzle oncoming traffic. This is standard on the 400d, whereas the 300d, it gets regular LED headlamps. If you come over to the side, I actually like this profile a lot because they've retained that forward sloping C-pillar that we first saw on the ML class. The 400d gets these 20-inch wheels as standard, whereas the 300d behind me gets 19s. And as for the rear design, both these cars get the same styling, and except for the badges, there's nothing differentiating them at the rear. There are these slim tail lamps, again with new light signatures. There's a 4MATIC badge, and there's a little bit of chrome. So between the two tail lamps, there's a strip of chrome, and there's more chrome at the bottom with the skid plate and the exhaust tips. If you think the changes to the outside were massive, you should see what they've done to the inside. This thing is completely redone. Now the big change here is those two screens. So you've got a 12.3-inch screen for your infotainment system and a 12.3-inch screen for your instrument cluster right in front of you. This infotainment system actually has the new MBUX system. So this new touchpad here, we saw it first on the GLC, you get it now in the GLE. There are a number of ways to control this actually. So you can use these touchpads on the button. It's now a touch screen as well, and you can use voice commands. A lot of people have actually criticized these buttons on the Mercedes-Benz steering wheel, but I kind of like them. You can control the infotainment screen with this left button here and the instrument console with this right scroll button here, and they're touch sensitive, so you can swipe on them, you can click them, and you never actually have to take your hands off the wheel to control anything on the two screens, which I quite like personally. In terms of connectivity, you've got right here, you've got two USB Type-C ports. Now this is going to be a problem if you're used to using the old USB ports because this car only gets Type-C. So you've got two in here, one in here in the center console, and you've got two for the rear passengers. A total of 5 USB Type-C ports, but no regular USB ports. Coming to the materials used around the dash, you've got this open pore wood finish. It's quite nicely done. The GLE 300d gets a different sort of finish, and you get leather interiors everywhere. These seats, they're very, very comfortable. In the 400d that I'm sitting in, you get lots of adjustability. You also get cooled seats, heated seats, and a massage function. This you do not get in the 300d. In the 400d, you also get a Burmester audio, which sounds lovely. There's a couple of things I'm not a fan of on the GLE. If you look right next to the screen, these fake vents, they look a bit tacky, and when you touch them, they're actually very, very cheap plastic. I'm not a fan. And this, a bottle, you put it into the bottle holder here, and you'll realize this bottle holder isn't damp, so there's no felt lining or anything of the sort. And when you're driving along, it rattles. A lot of you GLE buyers are going to be spending a lot of time in the back seat. Well, so here you are. In terms of legroom, a lot. This thing has a lot of legroom, and the seat is set to my seat setting. Thigh support is good as well. And in the 400d, you get these electrically adjustable rear seats. So I can move them ahead and forward if I want to increase room in the boot, and I can recline them as well. Mind you, this is a feature that's only available on the 400d, and the 300d does not get it. You get the center armrest, there's some storage in here, felt lined, very nice, and you get cup holders. Something that will keep you really comfortable in the rear is the 4-zone climate control. Now this is a standard feature on both the 300 as well as the 400d. And down here, you get those two other Type-C ports I was talking about. At the back, there's a good sense of space. The window line is nice. You get these sunshades. I can use a switch to put them down or pull them back up. And I've got a massive, massive panoramic sunroof stretching right from over my head all the way to the front of the car. That just increases the sense of space at the rear. I just wanted to show you a couple of features that the 300d misses out on that the 400d gets. And they're right here in the door. Here, plain speakers, no Burmester audio. And even the seat positioning system isn't as fancy. You don't get as much maneuverability. There's no memory function, there's no heated and cooled seats, and there's no massagers either. Even at the rear, if you look at the door, there's no electrically adjustable seats here. The GLE 300d also gets 2 airbags less. It gets 7 airbags compared to the 400d's 9 airbags, and it only gets a rear reversing camera where the 400d gets a 360-degree camera. As for the engines these cars get, the 300d, it gets a 2-liter diesel engine that makes 241 horsepower and 500 Nm of torque. This baby here, the 400d, it's a 6-cylinder engine, 326 horsepower and 700 Nm of torque. Both of them made it to 9-speed gearboxes, both of them get all-wheel drive. But the big news on this one is it gets active suspension. Let's get behind the wheel of both of them and see what they're like. Right, first up, the Mercedes-Benz GLE 300d. What's it like? It's quite punchy. Honestly, I did not think the 2-liter engine would be able to move this car the way it does. I thought 2 liters, heavy car, is going to be a little bit sluggish. It doesn't feel that way. When I drove it out on the highway in the morning, I didn't find myself needing more power or more torque to make overtakes. It has enough. And at the same time, it's refined. So it's not being strained too hard and it doesn't feel like you're wringing it of everything it's got to get that power. It's perfectly usable and perfectly refined. The steering, it's direct, but there's not too much by way of feedback, and that's a common problem across all these electric power steerings. But it feels direct and you feel like you can place the car well. This 300d, it rolls a little bit, but it's very predictable. I like how it corners, I like how it behaves in corners. I've been driving it a bit harder on these roads than I am right now, and it's a car that, it's not a BMW, so it doesn't feel as tied down and as planted, and you can't throw it around with as much confidence, but it is a car that you can drive enthusiastically. The ride quality is actually quite good as well. So over really bad bumps, okay, there's a bit of firmness in it, but it's actually very compliant. Over bad roads, the high profile tires, the smaller 19-inch wheels actually help. You can actually hammer it through these roads with a lot of confidence. Inside the car, it feels comfortable, it feels well damped. It doesn't have too much of the floatiness going on that I found in the X5. I don't think the ride quality matches up to the level of the Q7, but it is still really, really good. The 300d is what most of you guys are going to be buying into because it is the more affordable car. And honestly, for the money, it's a good package in terms of what it offers when it comes to the driving. It's got power, it's got ride quality, it's got good steering, and it feels pretty complete. There's very little to fault. But then you get into the 400d, and that is a completely different animal. Okay, I did not think that the 300d was lacking for power until I drove this. This 400d, it's hilariously quick. 324 horsepower, 700 Nm. It really, really moves. I love the way it puts down its power. It's so creamy. The torque, it just lifts you up and shoves you in the back. And it's got a slight growl to it. It's a diesel. It's not supposed to sound particularly sporty, but it actually sounds quite nice when you're hustling this thing. The 300d, it's got adequate power. This one has a lot of power. I really enjoy driving this car.
it's something you want to get into. It's something that you want to drive. It picks up speed really, really nicely. It's creamy, the delivery is smooth, it's refined, and overall the drivetrain, it's phenomenal. The best part about the 400d though has to be its suspension. It's got really good ride quality, and that's because the suspension is constantly adapting to the road surface to make sure you're driving and you're comfortable on the road. But my favorite thing, ride quality aside, ride quality is fine, it's good, it's already good on the 300d, it's better on the 400d. What really makes the 400d stand out is its handling. It's got this little trick, you put it into curve mode with the dynamic select button over here, and this thing, it just transforms into something completely different. Let me explain to you how this curve function works. Imagine a motorcycle. You know how a motorcycle leans into a corner? The GLE does the same thing, and it does that to compensate for body roll. So when it senses you turning right, it will lean into the corner to compensate for the body roll that's pushing you in the other direction. It's really something phenomenal. You have to rewire how you handle this car because it just corners flat. You expect a car this big, a car this tall, you're sitting really high up, you expect it to roll, and it doesn't. The nose just darts into the corner. It's really, really cool. The E-Active suspension actually has another cool trick up its sleeve, and that is the free driving mode. And we're going to demonstrate that man versus machine style.
So one of the many things that the GLE can do with its active suspension is this. What is it doing? Basically, when you're off-roading and you get stuck, you may have seen a lot of guys with their gypsies and Thars rocking the cars. The GLE is basically doing it for itself. This is so that you can get more traction and dislodge yourself in sticky situations. Quite a marvel of engineering, huh? And this, well, it's a marvel of God's engineering, I guess, with his big biceps. Oh, well, the car stopped. It has a timer and it stops rocking after a certain point. And well, I guess Abhishek's won this competition.
So if you thought that was cool, you can also control the individual ride heights of each wheel. So when you're stationary in an off-roading situation or when you're rolling at very low speeds, you can actually go into the touchscreen and say, hey, I want my right wheel extended completely, but I want the rear left to be compressed. So you can actually go into the menus and do all of that manually. The GLE 400d, I think it's a really complete package. It's got everything going for it. The engine, it's great. Ride quality, superb. Handling, my God, it's probably the highlight of this car. Plus, it looks the way it does, and the interiors are as lavish as they are. But then, you factor in the price.
The GLE 400d, it costs rupees 1.25 crores, and that's frightfully expensive for a car like this. You may argue that it's worth the money considering the amount of tech it offers, but the market doesn't work that way. They're going to buy into this, the 300d. And to be fair, it's a great car. It's got a good engine, it's got good ride and handling, it's got lovely interiors, and it looks the way it does. The E-Class really ramped up Mercedes-Benz's numbers in India, and I think the GLE is going to follow in the same vein.
Subscribe to the Evo India channel and hit the bell icon to keep pace with the thrill of driving.